Hello, everyone. Welcome to another off the cuff chat, ramble, conversation with me, FPL Mez. It's 9:30 p.m. over here in Australia, and I'm joined by the Planning King, as I call him anyway, the Planning King, and also known as the Planning King, FPL Planner, Tien. And it's so lovely to see you today, Tien. How are you going?
I'm very good, thanks. I'm very excited to be here. And yeah, trying this new format, dual stream and
Yeah,
spaces at the same time. And I'm surrounded by various equipment, just hoping everything is working.
I really hope so as well. I think the folks on Spaces they're going to have to give us a bit of a thumbs up and let us know whether you can hear us quite clearly. This is, I have to admit, this is the first time that I'm doing Spaces and YouTube live, and so I have no idea how this is going to go. But fingers crossed, it works out really well. I think I've got it all connected up before I drank my third glass of wine, which I'll share with all of you as we're sort of chatting as well. But thank you so much for joining us again today. It's so this is actually my second Spaces this week, and I wasn't entirely sure that I would be doing two in a week, but given it's international break, I thought it would be fantastic to just kind of squeeze in another one, especially because I've got my wildcard active for game week 9. Oh my God, I was almost going to say game week 11, like fast forwarding way ahead there. Um, but as you know, Tien, when we were chatting the other week, I activated my wildcard a little bit. I was a bit hesitant, activating my wildcard, and so I didn't really plan. I didn't really plan to activate it when I did. I was actually planning for game week 10, but it just so happens that I managed to find myself in a position where it was better for me to probably activate it now rather than later. But before we go into all of that, firstly, thank you so much for joining as my third guest on Off the Cuff Conversations and Chats and Rambles. It's so lovely to have you, join me today. And how are you going? Like, as you know, like these conversations are not super, focused on, FPL data, stats, and, it's not sort of deep conversations about all the things around FPL. This is also about life and things that are happening in our worlds as well, and us as human beings, and, what's going on in our spaces in general. So it'd be great to have a bit of a chit chat with you, get to know you in between, and then, also have a great conversation about FPL as well. So how are you going, Tien?
Yeah, very good, very good. Yes, just winding down on a Friday, after work and taking the kids to soccer and stuff, and everything is done, and it's lovely to be here and just have a little chit chat about FPL. I don't, not having football this weekend. Is a bit sad, but I think we can all have a little break every now and then, and yeah, very excited to hear that he won on the wild card as well. So
Yeah,
very
yeah.
excited to see
And how's
what
that
the
break
draft looks
going?
like.
Because obviously I saw you, I think it was only last week. It feels like so much has happened in between. But it was so lovely to see you in person last week in Canberra. As you know, and I'm sure many people that are listening as well, those that have sort of got to know me over the last sort of couple of years or so that I've been around on FPL Twitter. I moved to Canberra for about 18 months or so, and it was a really interesting experience because it was also lockdown in Canberra, and Australia was going through its sort of worst period of the pandemic. And I discovered FPL while I was in the UK, and I had to travel to the UK during the pandemic as well. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience, having to sort of travel and come back with this newfound love of FPL and realizing that I'm in a really tiny city like Canberra and not having a clue whether, if there's anyone that I can meet around here that plays FPL as well. And I think that's when Tien, that's when I met you. Yeah, so I think I found you on Twitter and saw that this guy there's this guy called FPL Planner AU. I'm presuming he's in Australia, and it just so happened that you were in Canberra. And I remember sort of reaching out to you and thinking at the same time, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm still learning about FPL. It's my first season. I was like a couple of months into playing FPL. Obviously, we were in lockdown at the time. I'm talking about the end of 2021, from a calendar year. And at the same time, I was thinking, I really need some help with planning. And so, who better to help me with planning than FPL Planner? The funny thing is, 2 and a bit seasons in, I still need help planning. So, I'm so glad that I found you and met you. And I'm going to just kind of shoot up a photo for those that are watching on YouTube as well, that the day that we managed to organize a meetup, and that's when we met, the other few people that are playing FPL in Canberra as well.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. Yeah, when I discovered that there's actually more than one person in Canberra that play FPL,
I
I've been talking to, yeah, I've been talking to a few others around Australia, and it's just one of the best thing playing FPL when you actually have a little
Oh, I
community
think
as well, and I
we've just
think
lost your
it's yeah.
audio,
Oh,
Tien,
hang on.
on Spaces.
How about now?
Yeah, that's it. You're back. Amazing.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I was just saying that having like a little community of a few of us playing FPL,
Yeah.
and we actually can actually meet each other and talk over a couple of beers. Is just one of those wonderful things. I mean, I know quite a few others in Australia and around the world as well, and we talk a lot on Twitter, but just nothing. Just it's like just a little catch up in person. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was lovely to see you in person. That was,
Yeah.
what is it, last year, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking at the date on this. It was actually 11th of March 2022 is when, we had
Oh,
the
there we
meetup.
go.
But I think we were chatting in the background, for quite some time. And, we were obviously we formed a group in Canberra. And as we were also, for me anyway, I was also getting to know the FPL community here in Australia as well, which is such a fantastic community to be part of. And yeah, really great bunch of people, over the few years that, I've been getting to know everyone. And I'm just going to put up on the screen. This is when we had the social in Sydney, and so this was the FPL Addicts guys who also run FPL Social over here in Australia, and I think they'd done a few prior in Melbourne, I believe, and this time round, they had one in Sydney. And the funny thing was, I was actually living in Canberra at the time, and I'd sort of got over to Sydney, and this is when I'd started to sort of think about moving back to Sydney from Canberra. So I think this was like late, I think it was September last year. Actually, October. There you go, 9th of October. Look
October.
at that.
Yeah.
That's like almost
It's
exactly a
almost,
year
yeah,
ago. That's
almost exactly a year
crazy.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah, so it's
And
been
do you
about a
remember
year.
that? Like, yeah, do you remember that? That was so that photo was us in the, what's it, Cheers bar, right?
That
When we
was,
were watching,
that's
yeah, we
right.
were watching the live game, and yeah, watching like the Man City game where
Yeah.
we both had Foden. I think that was yeah, that was very memorable night. It was such a
Yeah,
good night.
that was such a good night, yeah, and I think you can kind of see it in the background there, where you had Foden there, like 12 points
Oh
that he got
yes.
that night. It was such a good, yeah, such a good vibe as well. But we also got to meet so many of the other FPL managers that we've got here in Australia, and it's so nice to still be part of that community and get to know everyone and spend time with them, offline as well. So yeah, it's been an absolute delight. And I think since then there's been another social as well, which I couldn't get to this time round. I think it was in Melbourne. I'm not sure, or maybe it was
Yeah.
in Sydney, and I wasn't able to make it. But speaking of sort of socials, as well. Like so, over here in Sydney, we've actually got a massive FPL community, and it's been really lovely. Like moving back to Sydney because I'm originally from Sydney, and so it's really nice to move back to Sydney and get to know the folks over here in Sydney a little bit more. And we had a couple of meetups in the past sort of year where we've just kind of socially just got together. And I think the last one that we had was in May, and that was just at the end of the previous season. And it was a really good season, for me. So it was really lovely to meet everyone, and I think I sort of topped one of my favorite podcasts, which is FPL Sidenet's podcast. And Andrew, who is one of the hosts for the podcast, bought me a drink because I topped the league there. So it was a really nice opportunity to meet everyone and sort of talk about my season as well, which was a far better season than what I'm having right now anyway.
Oh yeah, still early days, still early days. But just talking about meetup, um, so I think you're meeting up in Sydney on the 21st, right? So that's a
That's right.
Saturday. So on the Monday, I'll be traveling to Melbourne. So I'll be in Melbourne for a week,
Oh,
working in
fantastic.
Melbourne. So I've already got in touch with Pete, FPL Signet, and hopefully catch up with a few other lads in Melbourne as well. So probably not going to be as big as your meetup in Sydney, but yeah,
Yeah,
just having
that's
a few beers with a few lads in Melbourne would be great. And it's
that
just the
is
things that we love to do, right? Which is a random
yeah,
strangers
that's
meeting
right.
on Twitter and
I
just
know.
talking FPL, and then suddenly we just like travel around Australia just to have a beer
Yeah,
with
just
each other.
just to hang out. Yeah,
So
why not?
yeah,
I
so
love
yeah, looking
that.
forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much because so this time round, what's been really awesome as well is that I got chatting to Nima, who runs the global meets sort of meetup sort of initiative, and this time round when I was in the UK, which was not that long ago, it was a couple of months in the UK, and I was there on deadline day, and I went to FPL meets in London. It was so lovely to meet a whole bunch of people over there, meet the London crew, and unfortunately, I sort of didn't get to see a lot of people that I hoped to have seen this time round as well. But I got, more recently, I got chatting to Nima, and I mentioned to him that we're doing this meetup over here in Sydney, and if it's worthwhile us being part of the meets, and create a meets chapter over here in Sydney. So we are now part of the meets initiative that Nima runs, and there's a whole bunch of chapter leads all over the world as well. So yeah, it's really lovely to be part of meets officially, and so yeah, really really great opportunity for us and to be part of that global initiative. Nima, there is actually a WhatsApp group that I got sort of be part of as well, and there's all these other chapter leads in there as well, and I think there's already one in Melbourne as well. So yeah, really fantastic to be part of that. I'm going to move on to something a little bit more personal about you. So this time round on the screen, and so those that are watching, and I'll see if I can post this. Actually, I'm gonna really quickly post this while you tell us what is going on over here on the screen. So
Yeah.
yeah, tell us a little bit about. So this is so. Tien, you are not just an FPL planning king, but you are also a Taekwondo second Dan black belt as well.
Yeah, so what he's seeing on screen is a few months ago, April, I think. So it's about 6 months ago now. Yeah, so that was a time when I was training for my second degree black belt grading. As you can see, there was a videos of a few broad breaks that I had to do, and there was one particular one that, so the photos below that was one particular combination of board breaks that I've been practicing for, I don't know, 6 months in leading up to the day. And then one day, instead of breaking the board, the board broke me instead. So
Oh
you can
my
see that there's
God.
the massive bruise on the big toe there.
Yeah.
And that was about 8 weeks out of the grading day.
Oh wow.
And I've been working about
Oh,
about a
you've gone
year
on mute again,
before that.
Tien.
Oh, hang on. So, how about now?
Yeah, that's back. You're back. Amazing.
Yeah, the phone is just keeping turning off, I think. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, so, I've been working for about a year. I've been training for about a year leading to the grading. And then, yeah, about 8 weeks out, attempting that board breaks, but almost broke my toe.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah, luckily it wasn't broken. It was just like a massive bruise. And it got me out of training for about a week, and I
Oh
managed to
wow.
get back to training after a week. And obviously, I had to change my combination to something else. And yeah, luckily enough, got through the grading in April. Um, so yeah, that was an interesting time,
Yeah, yeah.
having FPL and training for that grading at the same time. So
Yeah, I bet. And
yeah.
you know what the funny thing was, right? Like I saw you post this when you hurt your toe 22nd of February. The funny thing is a few weeks later, I broke my toe. And this was, I was playing five-a-side football, and I broke my toe in just, going for a tackle that I probably shouldn't have done. I was like not prepared for that, and I broke my toe, and I was thinking, shit, how am I gonna? And it took me out for quite a while, actually. Like not being able to. So I'm really impressed that you were able to shortly after, get back on your feet and yeah, jump to it, and yeah, congratulations. That's a huge achievement there, and yeah, really really well done, to you on that. Yeah,
Thanks. Yeah, my
yeah.
toe is still not completely healed, but it's just like, yeah, whatever. I just don't need to use it as much.
Yeah, that's it's funny you should say that because I play a lot of tennis. I've given up playing football now because I'm just like, nah, this is not going to work for me, and I can't afford to sort of hurt my toe again. But I still play tennis, and occasionally, depending on the type of shot that I go for, I tend to kind of I feel the pain every so now and then. I kind of feel that pain as well. So yeah, I completely understand. Completely understand. And the last one, just to get to know you a little bit as well, some more. So what I've got on the screen here is I was heading over to London, and funny enough, that was the same day that you were heading on to vacation as well. And it was so bizarre because we were just walking down, like I was with my niece at the time, and I'm at Sydney Airport. And I was thinking, I know that face. And the thing is, right, like, when you know people well, you kind of see them and you're like, no, it can't be. And I'm looking at my niece. I'm like, hey, just slow down. I think I've seen a friend. And she's like, oh, really? How does that happen? And I remember sort of calling out your name on the off chance that was definitely you, because there was also a chance that that wasn't you.
Because I
But
was wearing glasses as well, so
yeah,
it's slightly different. Yeah, no, that like what was the odds? Like in the middle of Sydney International Airport, we just bump into each other, heading completely different direction. Because I was going back to Vietnam with family on vacations, and you were heading to London, and it's like wow, just just randomly bump into each other at Sydney
yeah,
Airport.
yeah. No,
That was yeah.
that was so good. It was just such a bizarre sort of coincidence. But did you have a great holiday? Because you're from Vietnam as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. So originally from Vietnam. No, it was good. Spent 3 weeks there, seeing a lot of families, and did a few sightseeing and
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
sort of beachside resorted a resort a few days, and so yeah. But it was good. It was really good, and
yeah. Lovely. I love Vietnam.
yeah.
I've only been there once, but I started in Hanoi, in the north, and I had the most amazing banh mi's up there, and enjoyed sort of traveling all the way down to Ho Chi Minh as well. And I think Halong Bay was one of my favorite places, along with going to Hoi An. I really enjoyed
Mm.
that trip as well. So love the food, love the Vietnamese food as well. In fact, after my trip from the UK. When I got back, I refused to have any Indian food because I was having a lot of Indian food back at home with my parents, and my mum makes amazing Indian food, and obviously in the cuisines World Cup during our international break, it seems like Indian food won that cuisine World Cup that was going on. So congratulations, Indian food is very yummy. But I got to a point where I got back from the UK, and all I wanted to do was just eat lots and lots of Asian food, and Vietnamese food is like my go-to, food. So, yeah, no, it was so nice to bump into you and have that moment and share it with the wonderful FPL community on Twitter as well. And it's nice to be able to share it on YouTube as well now, and chat to you. So I guess we should get down to business.
Is it a FPL show or what?
Oh, I know. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. But yeah, look, I'm hoping that this is what everyone is here for as well. So, those of you that are tuning in for the first time, we're on Spaces, and we are also on YouTube Live this for the first time actually. So thank you to everyone that's joining us on YouTube Live. It's so wonderful to see so many familiar names and faces that are showing up on YouTube as well. It's so brilliant to see you all. I wasn't entirely sure how this was going to work, and this is the first time I'm doing it as well. So I remember saying to Tien as we were, as I was starting everything, I was like, this is a one big experiment experiment, and we'll iterate from here. And I'm sure I'll learn lots, and some of it may go wrong as well. But that's one of the things that I love about, trying out something new, is just to be able to iterate and try things differently. But getting down to business, so I've activated my wildcard, but before I start chatting to you about my wildcard to get a lot of your recommendations and tips and suggestions and the rest of it. And for those of you that are listening on Spaces as well, I do have I have Spaces actually being streamed to YouTube as well, and so do give us reactions, likes, hearts, anything that you can, because it is very one-sided from a Spaces point of view. So yeah, any interaction that you can provide us there is very, very valuable and very useful for us. Just to know that you are there and you're reacting as well. So even if it's a thumbs up occasionally. But before I jump into my wildcard, Tien, it would be really great to hear from you about your wildcard, because you were on wildcard 8.
Yeah, that's right. So, are you able to share this on the Spaces as well, or
Yeah,
so
I
that they can
can.
see the
Yeah, I
team,
can.
or
Absolutely. I
yeah,
will take a screenshot and I will share it on
yeah.
Spaces as well. That
Yeah.
way,
Anyway, why you do that? Like I was on the wild card in game week 8, like a lot of other people. I think it was a good time to do it, and I was kind of always planning to do it, so it wasn't like a last minute thing or anything. Basically, I activated as soon as the deadline of game week 7 had passed. Well, I didn't actually physically activate it, but I already kind of making transfers along the way.
yeah.
So as you can see on the screen, it turned out to be a pretty successful one. So I got 69 points in total, and I think it got me from about 1.4 million ranked down to about 433 K. So I think that's a big improvement, and it's always good to have a instant impact on the wildcard.
Yeah.
So in terms of what's some of the major talking points about the team was just basically I went without Son. So the wild card was basically featuring the 2 premium setup, so Haaland and Salah, and I captained Salah as well. Now, if anyone kind of
Oh, you've gone
followed
mute
me
again.
and hang on,
Yep. Yep, you're
okay,
back. Yeah. Yeah. And I've shared
don't
your
know why,
team on
just
the chat as well. Yeah.
yeah.
That's all right. I'll
So
keep telling you.
yeah, yeah. So so if anyone has kind of followed me and because I talk about my wildcard drafts along the way with the FPL Sign Up podcast as well as the FPL IQ show as well, and for both of them, there was slightly difference, but for both of them, I didn't have Salah. So I had been going without Salah pretty much the entire week.
Yeah.
The reason is I just couldn't have everyone. Like I knew
Yeah.
that I was gonna keep Trippier. That was a non-negotiable. So actually, the dilemma was which of the 3 premiums I was gonna let go. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
not discounting no Haaland, no Salah, and no Son. That was a 3 option. So
Yeah.
I'd been going sort of no Salah for most of the week, but then eventually on the Saturday, I've been thinking about and playing around with different setup.
Yeah.
I decided in the end to go without Son. The main reason for that was basically that I was playing around with like how the team's going to look from game week 10 onwards and how to get like Saka back, and setting up for the Arsenal fixture swing and setting up for the West Ham fixture swing and
Yeah.
Brighton as well. And I don't want it to be behind the game week 10 wildcard, right? So in all plans, basically Son was the first to go because that was the money I needed to get like Saka.
Yeah.
So then I
Yeah.
was thinking, well, if I only had Son for 2 weeks, then what's the point of having him at all? And
That's fair.
if
Yeah.
even if that's the case, if I sell Son, then I'll pretty much only have Haaland as the only single premium for captaincy, which doesn't have the best features going forward up until like in week 15 or 16, right?
Yeah.
So that was when I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just go Salah and no Son.
Yeah.
So then the captaincy decision was basically if I had kept Son, it would have been on Son. But I switched to Salah, so it was Salah. And I mean, the outcome was obviously I couldn't see that, predict that, but it was a big swing. And sometimes that just happy out for you. You can plan as much as you do, but the outcome could be a total surprise because
Yeah.
Son got nothing.
Oh,
Son
you're on
got
mute
nothing
again.
again. Lut.
I don't know what's going on there.
I'll just have to
Wait,
like keep.
well, your voice is definitely coming through on YouTube because we've got two mics set up
Yeah,
for YouTube
yeah,
and
yeah.
for Spaces. So it's
Anyway,
the
just we'll
Spaces
just
guys.
we'll
I'm
just
really sorry, everyone
yeah,
on Spaces.
we'll
Occasionally
just
that
we'll
will
just
happen.
keep we'll
Yeah,
just keep to that. I don't know. The phone just keep
but
turning
you
off
know,
and something. But anyway,
but to your point
yeah. So
about the
that was a
Son.
deal. Yeah,
Yeah, just
yeah.
to your point about the Son move, right? So I brought in Son in game week 8, and it was. I did have at the back of my mind that I will probably end up dead ending to some extent and just going for, bringing in Son and potentially sort of captaining Son as well. And so that was something that was at the back of my mind, definitely. And so, and that's what I ended up doing. I won't sort of, I've already shared like my team sort of previously, and I'll show you as we go through the planning side of it, and I'll show you the team that I've got as well. But yeah, I love that you just decided, okay, you know what, I'm not going to go with Son. There's no point bringing him in just for 2 game weeks because you're going to want to take him out anyway and then jump on to Salah. So makes perfect sense, to do that. But yeah, I love that you also kept Trippier because like Trippier for me has been a really great pick so far. So I guess like when I was thinking about wildcarding, and as I mentioned earlier, I was actually planning to wildcard in game week 10. And, in hindsight, there's a part of me that thinks that maybe I should have wildcarded in 8. Because it would have given me the opportunity to bring in Salah because that was definitely part of the plan. And honestly, I wasn't necessarily thinking about the fixture. So I was thinking more so about the fixture swing that Liverpool were having over the fixture that they had against Brighton. So that was something that I unfortunately didn't sort of cave in and sort of do a little bit earlier. But I remember seeing a whole bunch of others that were also wildcarding, and that's probably a good opportunity to just say hi to everyone on that's watching on YouTube as well. So Katia, Charlie and PSB, great to have you here. Getty, Karen as well. Karen is also, a Sydney sider, Liverpool supporter, and yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting up with Karen in a week or so. Marcus, always a pleasure to have you, and Yelena, yeah, brilliant to have you. And I love that you flew to YouTube when you saw the tweet for the stream. Yeah, great to have you, and it's always a pleasure seeing you and Marcus and a whole bunch of others also sort of turn up for the spaces on a regular basis as well. It's just so wonderful to see you on this platform this time live rather than on spaces as well. So as I mentioned, it's experimental for the first time I'm trying this, so yeah, really really great to have you guys. Fran, lovely to see you as well, and Peter and Calvin, yeah, great to have you guys, and thank you so much. And I was going to say as well, like, this is a very informal chat. It is very much off the cuff. That's why I named it off the cuff as well. I'm not we're not really planning anything other than the few sort of Twitter posts that I had kind of to pull up in terms of a conversation. It's not really planned. We don't know what we're going to be saying. There's no script or anything like that. So it's really nice to just be able to have a very frank, off the cuff, candid conversation about a whole bunch of things. And I was just also going to add that we will be taking questions. And so rather than going right at the end to have any questions, feel free to ask questions on Spaces and on YouTube, and we'll sort of catch them as we go, because hopefully it won't, it's nowhere near as bad as I'm sure what other sort of people have experienced where there's a million conversations going on. I'm sure between Tien and myself we'll catch any questions in between as well. So yeah, feel free to have them coming. So Tien, I noticed that you also went with Darwin there. What was the thinking around bringing in Darwin on your wildcard?
Yeah, so Darwin was because I was point 0.2 short of Watkins.
Okay.
So yeah. So I mean, I could have gone with Watkins and have a much cheaper midfielder, but I didn't really fancy that setup. So in the end, I decided to go with DRB and the money I've got just enough to get Darwin. And I thought, Darwin was a good punt for that Brighton fixtures, because Brighton have been quite leaky as well,
Yeah.
and they don't have the first or the second choice left back either. So Salah was getting Salah. That was one of the big reasons for getting Salah over Son and captaining Salah as well. But then I thought Darwin could be a cheeky punt, and I'm planning to just keep him for maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and then he'll become either a Watkins or an Alvarez or someone else, so that I can get Saka
Yeah.
from game week 10. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And look, I had Darwin as well. Again, just a actually, how do you define a punt pick, Tien? When you say, I'm going to make
Yeah.
a punt pick, what do you mean?
Yeah, so a punt. So generally talking about transfers, right? A transfer for me will need to be at least 4 weeks generally.
Yeah. Okay.
Like if I want to bring someone in, then I would look for like a minimum of 4 weeks, unless something like drastically happened, like they got injured or something. But a punt would be someone that is shorter term. So, and generally I would do that either heading into a wild card. So I know that, like dead ending, right? So it's like, okay, well, I know that I'll wild card in 2 weeks' time. Like Morris, for example, was a punt. Because
Yeah.
Morris, I just
Yeah.
bought Morris in for game week 7 for the double game week. That's it, because I know that as soon as that finished, I'll wild card him out. So that was a punt.
Yeah.
That one is a punt where, because I'm wild carding, right? So I have a lot of spots in the team that are set up for the longer term. So I was like, well, let's play around with maybe 1 or 2 picks that are shorter term. A lot of the time it doesn't work, because other things will pop up in your teams, like injuries and whatever else that might happen, that will set you back with the longer term transfers. And so therefore I'm generally be quite cautious with taking too many punts. So
Yeah.
generally, if on a wild card, I generally don't have more than 1 punt.
Okay. Yeah.
But even then, sometimes it backfired massively. So yeah, just hopefully that won't be that. But yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a punt for me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, because like I was looking at Darwin as a bit of a punt pick as well this week. So and I guess like even though Son wasn't a punt pick for me, it was a very much a calculated decision to bring in Son in my case. And I'll, start shifting onto my team, and I'm going to use, Plan FPL to do some of my game week, or wildcard tinkering there. But this is basically the team. So I haven't hit wildcard on here. So I'll let me just do that. There you go. I'm hitting my wildcard there. But I brought in Son as a pick for basically one game week, and I didn't I didn't really overthink that either. Like I just thought, well, Son's playing, has a really good fixture, and so it makes sense for me to bring him in on this occasion. And I took a hit as well this game week, also because I had Wilson in the team. So sorry, when I say this game week, I mean game week 8. So I had Wilson in the team. I had to get rid of Wilson because he wasn't, it was very. There was a lot of concerns around whether he was going to play or not, and so I didn't want to take that risk, and which is why I ended up with the hit. But I basically made a straight move by bringing in, Son. So yeah, I was able to make that move quite simply. So yep, did so. Took out Rashford, I think, at the time, and brought in Son, captain Son as well. Just seemed like the perfect fixture to do so. And I think by the time I was taking this hit, and I don't know if that's a good idea, as in taking a hit when you are about to wildcard. Yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Like taking hits before you wildcard?
I don't think it matters.
Right.
So the way I think about it is, if you are about to take a hit, especially a short term, hit, right? So let's say if you are wildcarding the following game week, then you know that that move is a 1 week move
Yeah.
potentially. So as long as you can justify it, it's like, well, the player that I'm bringing in has a good chance of outscoring the player that I'm taking out for more than
Yeah.
4 points, then the hit will be paid off. And I think Darwin is a great example of that because I think we were pretty confident that he would start, with like Gakpo and Jota both out.
Yeah.
And we also knew that Brighton had been quite leaky, so it was a
Yeah.
perfect punt to take, and the hit was likely to be paid off, especially when you know that Wilson wasn't likely to start
Yeah.
either. So yeah, I wouldn't generally let the fact that I'm about to wild card deter me from taking a hit. If I think that's a good hit that is likely to pay off straight away, then
Yeah.
then I would do that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And basically, yeah, I was look, I felt like I didn't have a choice, and my bench is so weak as well. And so my
Yeah.
spaces that I did and YouTube video that I did earlier in the week, I did a bit of a retrospective. And so if anyone wants to, check out that video, I'll try and sort of link that into the YouTube video later on. But I did a retrospective of my game week 1 to 8 earlier in the week and just reflected back on, all the moves that I'd made and, whether I'd made good moves, bad moves, and, what went well, what didn't go well, that kind of thing. So I went back and took a look at all of that. And, there were a couple of instances where I feel like I probably should have held on to, like, Salah, for instance, and maybe shouldn't have held on to some of the players as long as I did. So Mbumo is a really good example of that. And I noticed you changed your team's name as well. So what was your team's name previously? Let everyone know.
So the team names originally was Postman's and Mobile. Because I
Yeah.
had Mbumo from game week 1, and he's
Yeah.
he'd done so well for me. So that was a team name that sort of in recognitions of his heroic point scoring machine for me. So it's like just like Batmobile kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Postman, like just like him hitting the post kind of like joke that has been going around
Yeah,
for the
I
last season or
know.
two. But then as soon as he is out of my team on the wild carding game week 8, I thought it would be just about time to change the team name again.
Yeah, fair
And
enough.
and Chile. Well, I'm not going to say it because it's probably not not safe for. But it recognized a few.
It's fine.
Um,
It's fine. I'm surprised
like
I
a
haven't.
few.
Well, to be fair, I haven't
Actually,
sworn
yes.
yet.
What's
I
happening
haven't
with all
sworn.
the swearing? Because
I
yeah, that's
know. I
it.
haven't sworn yet, and I'm like my
Yeah.
third glass of wine in, and I'm keeping it super kosher right now, and I'm not swearing, and yeah, it's amazing. I'm actually really impressed with myself. I've just posted my team on Spaces, and I did notice like someone said that they can't hear us very well on Spaces. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I'm not sure what's going on there so basically, Tien and I are having a conversation on Spaces, and so we hear each other on Spaces as well. And so I can hear
Mm,
Tien super clearly, and I'm hoping Tien can hear me clearly as well.
yeah.
Whereas we've got a separate microphones for our YouTube, stream. So apologies if that is the case. You are welcome to, if that
Mm,
is the case and YouTube is fine for you, you're welcome to, jump onto the YouTube stream instead. But hopefully it's okay on, because I can definitely hear you clearly, Tien. So hopefully
mm.
it's an isolated, issue there. So I've shared my team on there as well. And yeah, I loved like you changed your team's name there. Yeah, had a good old giggle when I was looking at that. But yeah, look, so looking at my team right now, and I'll start sort of like tinkering straight away, and get some of your advice along the way as well. So look, at the moment, I've got, oh my God, okay, this is where I will swear, I've got fucking Pickford still. So I'm going to get rid of Pickford's stat. So that is a no-brainer. But I guess like when you were picking your goalkeepers, what were you thinking in terms of like wildcarding and because I'm naturally sort of gravitating towards the West Ham goalkeeper, and I was
Areola.
Areola. Yeah, I was about to save the other guy, but then I realised that he's kind of lost his his spot in the
Yeah.
team at the moment, which is a real shame. Yeah. So, what goes through your mind when you were picking your goalkeepers?
Yeah, so I actually had my eye on David Raya from
Yeah,
Arsenal because, you know, for was it 4.8 million, I think, you know, for an Arsenal goalkeeper
yeah,
that you know are about to have a pretty good run of fixtures from game week 10. But unfortunately, you know, in all the drafts that I tried, budget has always been an issue because, you know, having him and then I didn't want to have Turner alongside him because there's a chance that, you know, Ramsdale may come in for an odd game,
yeah,
and so you need a playing keeper to come on for him. But then Turner could just lose his place
yeah.
at any point in time. So I originally I had, like, you know, David Raya and Areola as
Okay.
a sort of a goalkeeper pair, but obviously, you know, that cost me quite a few
Yeah, just going
bit
back to your
more
team.
money. So in the end, I
Yeah,
think budget was so tight that I just had to go with the standard pairing
yeah,
with Areola and Turner. And I think they perfectly fine. I think we're gifted with two playing goalkeepers that
yeah.
are doing quite well actually, and they can rotate pretty well with each other as well. So I don't think it's something that you have to sacrifice too much.
Yeah, okay. No, that sounds really good. And I just sort of pulled up your team on the screen there as well, just to kind of see, but if we take a look at a couple of the questions that are coming through. So just a little bit up ahead, Shamil asked a question about Martinelli. I think Martinelli starts. I've got a feeling that he's gonna. Well, I don't know about starting, actually. I take that back. But maybe he's going to come off the bench and play. But I think Trossard is injured, though, right?
No, I think Trossard was fine, but I don't
Oh,
think he
okay.
played very well. I don't
Ah,
think he
okay.
played very well, and I think when Martinelli came on for Trossard, they played much better. So
Hmm.
yeah, so I think for Martinelli, it's just a matter of whether he's fit enough to start games. If
Yeah.
he is, I think he'll be starting games. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, fair enough. And we did have another question around Robertson. So yeah, my heart broke when I saw that with Robertson getting injured. It seems like it's a dislocated shoulder for him. And Simicast at 4.4 on a wild card 10. What do you think of that? What do you reckon, Tien?
So yeah, so I saw that news earlier this morning, our time, and I did think about Simicast as well because he might be
Yeah,
because he's 4.4, so he might be one of my route to Saka without having to sell Maddison.
yeah,
So that will involve selling Trippier though. So that's definitely something that I'll have to think very hard about from game
yeah,
week 10, obviously. But I think the most important thing is we have to keep an eye out for what Arteta is gonna, you know, or not Arteta, Klopp gonna have to say about
yeah,
the nature of Robertson injury because I've seen, like, you know, for dislocated shoulder, it could be just a couple of weeks, which
yeah,
means that he could be back soon as well. So for a wildcard 10, I think we'll know a lot more by then. And if
yeah.
if Robertson is
Oh, you've gone on
is
mute
out
again.
for
Yeah, you're back. Yeah,
if Robertson is out for 4 to 6 weeks, for example, then it makes sense to go to Simicast.
yeah.
But if it's anything less than that, then probably not worth the punt because
It's a transfer, isn't it? It's an
it's a
extra
transfer
transfer.
out waiting. Yeah, it's an extra transfer waiting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be very careful with that, and obviously keep a very close eye on the press
Yeah,
conference.
I agree, and I think that's the downside. And so look, I think from a longer term, I completely agree with that. Like I really like Simicast, and he can get attacking returns as well. So from that point of view, I can see the value in bringing in someone like Simicast, especially if Robertson is out a little bit longer. But as you say, that's like an extra transfer that you're banking in. Unfortunately, and I've learnt the hard way. So as you were talking there, and I thought I'll actually call it out. I'm going to start removing the players that I'm definitely not happy with. So I have Mubama and Baldock, right? And so I'm just going to remove them from the screen so you can see, the fury that I've had, and it's like, this is where you can call it a bit of a clusterfuck, because I feel like I've just had one player that has been coming off the bench, right? And it's been so frustrating to have that. So the last thing that you want is to be able to bring in, Simicast for potentially one game week, and then have Robertson coming back. And then you've got, a player on your bench that's not going to come on, and probably won't come on, and if he does, then it might be for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, at the end of the match or something, but not coming on, and then not having a playing bench as well on top of that. And just in a short space of 8 game weeks, I've really felt, a little bit sort of, cornered with not being able to have any other players coming off my bench. And so, I had a -2 Estupinian coming off my bench, not that long ago. And so that was very frustrating, but I had no other choice. Like, I had Baldock and Mubama were my only other options.
Yeah, that's always an issue when you have a very thin bench, and sometimes you do need the bench to come on. So
Yeah.
and yeah, there seem to be more injuries this time as well.
Yeah.
So
I'm just gonna really quickly, as we're chatting, I'm just gonna pick because I feel like, and it'll be really good to get your perspective on this bit in particular. So I feel like, given how well we've got so many midfielders that we can bring in. We're talking about, Martinelli at 7.7 potentially coming back. Arsenal have got a really good fixtures coming up as well. Many people like me, like you, have also held on to Saka as well. So even like during the international break, where I've sort of activated my wildcard officially, I've not actually, sort of transferred out Saka. Not that it makes a massive difference, because even if he drops in value, it's still 8.5 that I brought him in as well. So I'm not really bothered about that. But I'm leaning towards a sort of 3-5-2 or a 4-4-2 kind of, what do you call it? What do you call it?
formation.
Formation. Thank you. Oh my God.
That's all right. That's all right. Hey, what about you just go ahead and put in the players that you were thinking about, if
Yeah,
you
that's
had
what I'm doing.
anyone in mind, and then we'll go from there. Because, talking about formation, right? There's no right or wrong answer
Yeah.
really. It just depends on who you really want to have in your team.
Yeah.
And so generally there will be 4 or 5 or 6, whatever number of picks that you think that are not going anywhere, right? So they are must have for your
Yeah.
team, and then we can just play around with it. And generally, when it comes to the last sort of like 3 or 4 picks, when you come to the 7th and 8th attackers in your team, and the 4th and the 5th defenders, that is when the formation will just form by itself in a
Yeah.
way. Because then it depends on your budget, and
Yeah.
where do you think the money is the most well spent.
Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of formation of 3-4-3, with Watkins and Alvarez alongside Haaland, being socialized on, FPL Twitter as well. And so, yeah, no, I just wanted to get like your vibe on that, because obviously with your team, you went with a similar formation that I'm, leaning towards at the moment as well. And so, yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what you were thinking there, like I don't think there's, like you say, there's no right or wrong there, but there are a lot of people who are now thinking about, if they haven't wildcarded already, they're thinking about wildcarding in game week 10. And, Alvarez playing so well at the moment as well. Like, you can even say that Alvarez is playing better than Haaland at the moment even. So with that in mind, and, some of us, like me anyway, I'm too scared to get rid of Haaland from my team. So, yeah, it's tough. So I'm just going to go right ahead, and I've just picked in some of the cheaper players that I've thought about bringing in. So I've brought in Taylor and Archer, at least like they're playing. But again, I may have some money left in the bank, so I'm not convinced about both of those picks anyway. But I'm just going to go ahead and put in a few of the players that I've been drawn to anyway, and kind of work out where to go sort of in between as well. So how many
Yep.
positions have I got? I've got 2 more positions. I've kept Saka there at the moment, and only
Yeah.
because like I'm generally happy with having Saka in the team. I'm not sort of any particular side on that. I think I just think he's a really good pick, but I'm also thinking about, and this is probably a good conversation point as well, because I think there'll be quite a few people thinking about Brighton mids, for their team. And so, even though Brighton are playing Man City coming up in the next fixture, I'm tempted to bring in either a Solly March or bring in a Matoma. And so, do we go for a Brighton mid just because they're good? Although Mitoma's flagged, so not sure how I feel about that. We'll come back to that in a moment. But yeah, what's your thoughts on bringing in Brighton players ahead of their fixture turn?
Yeah, so I think probably the most important thing you have to consider on the wild card this game week is how your team is going to shape up, from next game week. Because, there's a lot of people going to wild card in game week 10 because there's going to be, another fixture swing for certain
Yeah,
teams. Like, so Brighton's are going to get better, Arsenal going to get better, and West Ham are going to get better. Aston Villa will stay good. And Spurs are getting slightly worse. And so, so building the wild card now, you got to keep an eye out for that.
yeah,
So just thinking ahead, like what the wild card 10 might look like. And I think it might look like having a Brighton mid,
yeah,
and it might look like having a West Ham mid as well. So like a Bowen or Jem Wood-Prowse or whoever.
yeah, yeah,
So that is something that you probably keep an eye out for. Um, so yeah, I mean, my team has Mitoma and Bowen both in it because I've already had an eye out, keep an eye out for game week 10 when I wildcarded last week. So then I don't have to book too many transfers
yeah,
because it's wildcard. When you're wildcarding, it's very easy to just look at the game week in front of you,
yeah.
right? And say, oh yeah, it's like 2 or 3 game weeks away. I don't have to worry about it. I'll transfers. I've got transfers to make, but actually you don't have that many.
No,
Like like from game week 8 to game week 10, there's only 2 free transfers. Well, from
yeah,
now to game week 10, there's only one, so you can only book in one. But preferably you book in none because you want to keep that spare transfer
that's
for
right.
any unexpected like injuries or anything else.
Yeah.
So for that reason, generally, you want to at least have a few picks that you think going to be the ones that you want in a game week or two.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
Mitoma is definitely one of them, and Bowen is the other one as well if you can afford him.
Yeah, and you can see very quickly, like on my screen, I've got 4.4 left there at the moment anyway. I still haven't taken out Walker, and I feel I feel a little bit emotional about that. I have to admit,
Yeah.
because I've had Walker in my team right from the beginning, and that was mostly because I had John Stones that I brought into my team, and then the leak that I got was that John Stones was not playing, and the leak that I didn't get was that Gabriel was going to be benched, right? So I kept Gabriel in the
Yeah.
team. So now that Gabriel's dropped down to 4.7 mil as well, and given Arsenal have got a good run of fixtures coming up, and he's back in I don't know, Arteta's favour or whatever that was going on there. We don't need to kind of talk about that too much, but whatever it was, Gabriel is playing now, and he's playing really well, and he's getting, clean sheets and all of that. So, yeah, look, I'm going to hold on to Gabriel and team. I'm holding on to Trippier, and I brought in Cash a couple of game weeks ago, which hasn't quite sort of manifested into what I hoped it would. But I've got sort of high hopes with the upcoming fixture run that, Villa have as well. But Walker has been bagging a few assists and clean sheets as well. But I feel like given how challenging it is from a budget point of view, especially because I'm thinking about having Watkins up front. And I think Fran's signing off there. Great to have you here, Fran. Thank you for joining on YouTube. Have a great day. Appreciate you guys are in the UK, and it's about 12:30. It's lunchtime. Yeah, enjoy lunch. But I'm going to have to give up Walker in this case, and so yeah, it's a shame. But I'm now thinking like for a replacement over there, a 4.5, and I had my eye on Gehi. So I'm going to pop that in there as a bit of a placeholder for the time being anyway. Like that's my thinking at the moment. So I'm just going to leave that in there. But that then gives me only 5 mil to play with. If I keep Saka in the team, there's no Bowen at the moment. So look, if I want to go without, and we'll come to that in a moment, but for my 4.9, and I think you know where I'm going to go with this. So 4.9, the guy that has been on everyone's radar over this past week, 2 weeks, not 2 weeks, about a week and a bit, has got to be, Palmer. And so, yeah, what's your thoughts on Palmer? Because he's 4.9 mil. And from my understanding, and look, I sort of only caught the highlights very quickly, on Optus Sport, and so I didn't really get to watch like a proper sort of longer highlights on that to see how he was playing. But it sounded like he got 2 goals, was it, or 1 goal and 1 assist? I'm not sure, but he took a penalty, I believe, as well.
Yeah, he took a pen. Yeah, so obviously when you've got a 4.9 million midfielder who is on pen and just scored in the past game week, of course it's going to get attention from a lot of people.
Yeah.
I generally would be quite cautious about that
Yeah.
because to me, Chelsea are still quite unstable in terms of their setup formation. I mean, they got a few injuries as well. So some week they play Sterling on the right and then Mudryk on the left, or Chilwell playing left wing as well in some games.
Yeah.
And then in the last game, I believe Palmer started and played on the left, on the right, and then Sterling moved to the left.
Yeah.
Which worked quite well. So you could say that they're gonna keep that for now.
Yeah.
But then you don't know. Do you really think that Mudryk is gonna sit on the bench permanently?
No.
I don't think so. So and if he comes on, then of course who's gonna lose his place? It's gonna be Palmer, right? Because Sterling's
Yeah.
gonna switch to the right again.
Yeah.
So
And Bateman's also
like
saying that, rumor is Palmer is injured.
well, that's of course
Yeah,
that
that's yeah.
that ruled it out. But even if he was not injured, you got to think about like 4.9 for someone that potentially is a minute's risk, which I think he is for now. And if you are starting him every week on your starting 11, then I think that's not a very good balanced team. I mean,
Yeah.
having him on the bench as a first bench option, fine.
Yeah.
But having him starting every week is probably not ideal. And Chelsea fixtures are pretty tough as well going
Yeah.
forward. So
Yeah, I
so
agree. I
that's
think
that's another factor. Yeah.
I totally agree, and I think that's what's putting me off at the moment. Like, it's mainly the Chelsea fixtures, and I think if I had, actually, if I could just close that for a moment, and if you see, where I'm going with this, so like if I sort of just switch that out there, this is probably the formation, that I would play, and just pick someone. And at the moment, I have to be honest, I was leaning towards Souček to bring in instead of Palmer. And the reason why I was thinking Souček is mostly because West Ham have, decent fixtures. And so,
Yep.
from that point of view, I was leaning towards him, ever so slightly there. And so if I just kind of do that in price order, and just go and find him. Yeah, so West Ham's fixtures, I mean, obviously, you've got the tougher fixtures for Chelsea, and Enzo was another player that, I'd been thinking about under that 5 mil sort of mark as well. Yeah, I just couldn't bring myself to go there. Purely because of the minutes. The fixtures that Chelsea have. Palmer with the minutes risk as well, and I can't find Souček now. Like, that is really, really funny. He is still
So
at
go.
least. Oh, there he is. There he is. Yeah, I
It's
found him.
4.9. Yeah.
Yeah, he's way down there. Down here. I think I saw him just a moment ago. There we go. And so you can see there with West Ham's fixtures. I mean, obviously we're thinking about bringing in Bowen into our team, and I would love to have Bowen. And so for me, the alternative that could play that isn't a huge minutes risk is a Souček. And so having him in my team as the 4.9 that would be on the bench, and having Taylor and Archer are probably the best that I can do with only 0.1 mil left in left in the bank, which isn't much at all to work with. So this is basically the team that I could play. And even then, I don't know if I'd want to play Gehi. So I'd probably play Souček, and play 3-5-2. And I'll just pop this team on Spaces as well. So anyone, watching over there can, listening can also see what I've done there with the wildcard. At least the version that I think works for me right now, just with the amount of money I've got available to me. And this is the problem and the predicament I have right now, that I don't have that much money in the bank. And so I think there'll be loads of people that are also in a similar boat, where they don't have, that much money in the bank either. And so, yeah, it's really tough, from that perspective, right?
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Actually, it does look quite nice because basically you've got a rotation pair, right? Souček and Gehi. So you'll be switching between 4-4-2 and 3-5-2, depending on the fixtures, I guess. And I mean, Souček and West Ham have pretty decent fixtures going forward, and Crystal Palace as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think every week he can just decide on the day to say, okay, well, hey, this week
Yeah.
is a Souček week, or this week is a Gehi week. Now, obviously, the problem will come when you've got more injuries, and then obviously
Yeah.
you start to use your bench beyond the first bench, for example. Sometimes
Yeah.
that may be required. I mean, Archer is, he plays, right? So it's not too bad at all, and I think Taylor as well. So yeah, I don't think that's too bad. But then obviously you are potentially missing out from Bowen, for example, because
I
obviously,
know.
as good as Souček has been in the last
I
couple of weeks, he scored a
I
couple of goals,
agree.
and
Yeah.
but it's not Bowen. Like, obviously, you talk
No.
about the talisman of the team. So
Yeah.
have you thought about, and this is
Gone.
gonna shock quite a few people,
Gone.
have you thought about selling Trippier?
Oh no, my heart.
I know, I know. It's so so
Stop
so
it.
Trippier has been so good, right? It's like, so I think we brought him
Yeah,
in at the same time, game
I
week
think
6.
so. Yeah, the
Yeah,
game
so game
week,
week
the game
6,
week that I decided to live a little. Yeah.
yeah, so game week 6, he's got an 18 point, followed by the 12, and then followed by the 6.
Yeah.
Right. So very, very good asset, and I think he's continue to do well. But he's very expensive. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's
I
6.9 now,
yeah, I
and
agree.
and and the money that you can save from going from him
Oh,
to,
you
like,
gone on
even
mute
if you
again.
want to keep.
No, I don't disagree with you there. I just feel quite heartbroken. Like I'm
I
already
know,
removing Walker, who has been fantastic so far for me as
I
well,
know.
and then Trippier as well. But you're not wrong from a price point of view, and I think this is where,
Because let's just try it on your thing. So sell
yeah.
Trippier and sell
God.
Suchek to
All
see if
right.
we can convert Suchek into Bowen.
Okay. Fine. Fine. I will do that. I will do that. And while I'm doing that, actually, Tien, there was a couple of like questions or a very sort of all caps conversation coming in for FPL Wasteman there. And sorry, like it's not that we are ignoring you or anything like that, but I could totally hear you on Jensen and on Neto as well. But as you can probably see, yeah, it's kind of tricky to fit that in as well. So I'm not sure if you're shouting at someone else in the chat there, but yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. But I hear you or see you. But yeah, okay. So if we bring in Bowen, that gives me 4.4. It's not much, eh?
That's the Simicast that you were talking about, but
Oh,
it's a
don't
risk.
stop.
It's a risk. It's a risk.
Yeah.
4.4. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of options. I don't think
No,
that's
no.
so tricky because 4.5 you've got a lot of options, but
Yes.
4.4
And this is,
not so much.
you know what's really fucked up for me, right? I had so many
Mm,
price drops in my team over the past couple of game weeks, like especially over the past like I think game week 8 when everyone was
mm,
wildcarding. Well, not everyone, a lot of people were wildcarding, but when they hit their wildcard, and I guess like as a sort of fairly new FPL manager, this is the first time I'm wildcarding. I think during an international break, and so there's not been many price increases or price drops during this period. There's been a few, but it's not been anything like what we experienced in game week 8. And so I brought in Son at a higher price, and I had price drops with Rashford, and I had price drops with you know.
mm.
I think it was
Yeah.
Rashford and someone else in my team as well that I'd held on to, and so
Mm.
yeah, it's really unfortunate, but that's the predicament that I had there. However, plot twist, I was also thinking, do I get rid of Saka? And this is where do I sort of like when I think about so PSB actually mentioned DRB instead of Bowen. Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. And again, if I decide to not go Trippier, in fact, if I give up the idea of not going Matoma as well. So this is where all of those kind of predicaments start kind of coming to play because I really want to hold on to Watkins. It just seems like a dream run of fixtures for him to stay. So let's talk about maybe very quickly because there's some interesting conversation coming into the YouTube chat there. But I'm almost tempted to sort of just go through like a bit of a hierarchy of who I want to keep in the team, right? So I think my goalkeepers are fine, don't need to touch that. I'm just going to keep the cheaper players that I've got there as well. Those are fine, don't need to touch that. Trippier right now, only the defender that is worth owning. I know, the struggle is real. This is exactly what we're talking about. I'm totally heartbroken that Tien sort of mentioned that I should get rid of Trippier. But there are a couple of players there that, like Maddison, for instance, and Maddison's has been fantastic. But how long am I going to keep hold of Maddison as well? I don't know. Is he a season keeper for you, Tien?
Probably not. I
Okay.
would like to keep him. I would certainly try my best to keep him, but come game week 10, that's it's going to be the decision I have to make whether I
Yeah.
sacrifice Trippier or Madison. I
Yeah.
think one of them will need to go to fund Saka.
Yeah.
So if I sell Trippier, then I could turn, like say, a Diaby or someone else to Saka instead.
Mm.
Or alternatively, I can just go Maddison to Saka and that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough because we have 5 spots for midfielders, 3 spots for
This is the
forwards,
problem.
and
Yeah.
and there are at least 7 or 8 good midfielders that he won, and probably 4
Yeah.
or 5 forwards that he could have.
Yeah. Yeah. You,
So
you,
you can't have the ball. That's the problem.
no, that is the problem. Yelena just said not having Trippier is my biggest wildcard regret. No pressure. I know, right? Like
I and
this
and
is
that's
the
just the thing.
thing.
Like I completely agree with that. Like on a wildcard eight,
Yeah. I'm
Trippier
put
was
I'm
to
putting him
me a
right back.
no-brainer.
I'm putting him right back there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I'm not saying that he should sell now, but just
I
like
know.
just
Yeah.
think about because okay, so I bought him in game week 6, like just like you, and he's been doing so well for me.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's no reason to force him out anytime soon, and that was the reason why my wildcard game week 8, Trippier was a non-negotiable. I
Yeah.
was even willing to sacrifice Haaland, Salah, or Son, but not Trippier,
Yeah.
right? But saying that, or having said that, come game week 10 or 11 onwards, I'm looking like, well, you know, like, yes, he's a good option,
Yeah.
but with that fixture run, can I get opportunities elsewhere? It's
Yeah.
all about
And
the opportunities, right? Of course, and
that's
last
such a good
season was a
point.
prime example. Last example was a prime example of like Trippier was doing so well early on in the season. And of course, pretty much everyone had him, and he had just a wonderful run.
Yeah.
Post the World Cup, I think he had a couple of good games,
Yeah.
but then he dropped off completely from that. But people were holding on to him for too long
Oh, you're gonna
because
mute.
people were holding on him for too long after the wild card because I mean, one, they were still thinking that Trippier was such a wonderful asset.
Yeah.
He gonna turn around, but he never turned around. And secondly, like EO was very high, right? So people were too scared to get rid of him. I think I got rid of him in my unlimited transfer
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
after the World Cup. So I took the opportunity to go elsewhere, and I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's just gonna have to sort of let go of that
No,
sort
you're
of
100% right.
sentimental
Yeah.
detachment to a player. It's like, well, I've got his points, he's got his run. Can I look elsewhere, especially with the fund that he will unlock, right? Because going from him to a 4.5, that's more than 2 million that you can use to upgrade elsewhere in the
Yeah.
team.
Yeah. Yeah, look in all seriousness, you're 100% right there, and I think it's a really good reminder. And I did put it down on a post-it note and put it on my board, and hopefully I'll know the context of that, when I look at that again as well. So, I don't disagree with you. I think we sometimes like one of the things that came out of my retrospective, earlier in the week was that I held on to players a little bit longer than I probably needed to, and that goes for not necessarily the players that are not performing well in your team, but also the players that are performing well, but don't have the right fixtures coming up, and because there are other players that are better to bring in because of their fixture run as well. So it's not to say they're not doing well, but it's because someone else is doing better. And so it's a really good reminder, for me especially, but also, for others that are also in a similar sort of predicament where it is really difficult to jump off of players, at the right time. Yeah. Yeah. So long story short, I'm now sort of, it appears that I've got I'm minus 2.3 there. But if I go back to perhaps, getting rid of Bowen there, and hear me out when I say that I get rid of Saka, just because Saka potentially is giving away the penalties at the moment. I don't know if that's a regular occurrence or not. But I don't know about. I feel like it's not a good idea going without an Arsenal player into game week 10 onwards. I think is the main sort of fixtures there. I mean, even then Chelsea, they could do really well, as we know. Chelsea, although I haven't been conceding as much. And Wasteman has mentioned this a few times. Neto for Saka, good shout. Like, Neto is a really good player, really great shout. In fact, I think Black Wolf on Twitter did a really good comparison between Neto and He-Chan as well, as the two sort of midfielders that are getting consistent returns. And I think he said that Neto was a really good pick there as well. And maybe that's exactly what I need to think about doing. But as you can see, like if I hold on to Saka, I've only got 5 million in the bank, so I personally can't go there at the moment. Unless I change something up, which is the Trippier sort of side of things, So at the moment, look, I'm thinking Souček. If I decide to hold on to Saka, but if I get rid of Saka, and I think about Martinelli, and so I'd love for us to have a tiny bit of a conversation around Martinelli and what you think of Martinelli as a pick, and is Martinelli because Tien, you did a really good post recently around. Do certain players cover for the other sort of, the alternative option that are a bit more premium players? And I really appreciated that because, I think there was does Diaz and Darwin cover Salah, or maybe it was just Diaz, and, does Diaby cover Watkins? And I think you had a couple of players there. But in the scenario of Saka and Martinelli, what's your thoughts on those cover options there?
Yeah, so I think that the point that I tried to make in that post was that a lot of the time, like covers just don't work because like we got these talismans in the team for a reason, and if all the attacking sort of outputs are channeling through that player, for example, then that's a player you need in your team,
Yeah.
not the one that occasionally will get one.
Mm-hmm.
So Saka is that for Arsenal, right? He's a talisman for that team, and obviously recently he's been giving away penalties like candies to everyone else in the team, so that's a bit annoying. But even without that, he's still the main attacking output in that team,
Yeah.
and yeah, like obviously you could go Martinelli or Odegaard or whatever, trying to cover that, but you know that it's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
And if you can live with that, then that's fine, because
Yeah.
obviously you save a little bit of money that can help you have a better player elsewhere.
Yeah.
But you know that you have to accept that it's not going to be the same,
I
or
I
you can't expect that
Oh,
obviously
you've
on
gone on
any
mute
given
again.
game week.
I totally agree, Tien, and the reason why, like, I was leaning towards Martinelli, and I think some of the chat will be quite pleased when I lean towards Neto um, for this as well, because I can just afford Neto there if I do go Martinelli and sort of avoid keeping
To
Saka.
be honest, if you are going without Saka, I'll just go to Bowen.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
don't you
Yeah.
don't you don't need Martinelli.
Yeah. So okay. So in that case, that sort of changes a fair bit. So I end up with a point 0.5 in the bank there,
Yeah.
and maybe I stick with and this is where I stick with Neto, for example, because I think if
Mm.
I had the
Yeah.
option, then I would pick that. But then I've got potentially opportunity to upgrade Taylor, Archer, or I'm quite happy with Gahey in the team there as well. So yeah, look, there's a couple
Yeah, I
of
think
yeah.
I think if you keep that setup and point 0.5 in the bank, that'll give you a lot more flexibility, right? Because if let's say in game week 10,
Mm,
you could go without Saka for game week 10, even though they play Sheffield United, but then
yeah,
they go straight into Newcastle away, which is
yeah,
slightly tougher fixture. But then you can say, okay, well, I've made a mistake not having Saka for Sheffield United. Okay, I'm going to
mm,
live through Newcastle and I'm going to work my way back to get him back for Burnley,
yeah,
right? In which case you could decide, okay, well, maybe Maddison is not doing that great. Their
mm,
fixtures are about to turn slightly worse.
yeah.
I could work from Maddison to Saka instead. Now, point 0.5,
That's
I
right.
don't think is
It's
enough,
not enough. Yeah, it's not
but
enough.
at least you've got some. You just need to make up a little bit rather than a lot. because that's the key, right? You got to look at the structure of the team as well and say,
Yeah.
okay, well, where can I move? So obviously Neto,
Yeah.
you can move around that area a little bit. So you got the like of Gordon, Suchek.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you can go up to Jamwood Prowse, but the 4.5, 5.5 area, you got a couple of players that you can move around as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, to go up to Saka, you
Oh,
probably
you're on
need to
mute again.
sacrifice.
Um,
That's so annoying. I don't know
yeah,
why
I
it's
don't know why
turning
that's
off.
happening.
Maybe I
Um,
just need to keep touching my phone so that it doesn't turn off.
yeah. So look, if Saka goes down in price, I can go Maddison to Saka later, potentially, if he went down in price. So I kind of need, can everyone just start selling Saka, please?
The
A
other thing
lot more.
is the other thing. Yeah, the other thing you got to think about is like, yes, Watkin is a good option now.
Yeah,
There's no
but
argument about that. But I
agree.
think after game weeks 12, their
Yeah,
fixtures could potentially turn bad again. So you could
absolutely.
sell downgrade it like Watkins down to an Alvarez that will release
Yeah.
you what is it, another, I don't know, a million or something, right?
Absolutely.
So
So if I go to
yeah.
game week 10, so my game week 10 looks good. I probably wouldn't change too much over here. And, that's fine. I think obviously the only obvious downside there is that there's the Sheffield fixture that I don't have a single, I don't have a single Arsenal attacker. So that's the unfortunate sort of predicament there. So I think in that scenario, I'm still leaning towards keeping a Saka, in the team. So just as an FYI, but if I go into like game week 11 at that point, with game week 11, I have 2 free transfers, and you're right, like even though Watkins has got good fixtures there, there's 2 free transfers, and so with 2 free transfers, I have got a bit of wriggle room there to take out Maddison, for example, because Maddison then goes into, Chelsea. Wolves is a decent fixture. Um, Chelsea is, again, Chelsea have been okay defensively as well. But then there's Villa and Man City. So I'd be okay with getting rid of Maddison by game week, 10 or even 11, because I think even in game week 10, they play Crystal Palace. And so, yeah, look, that's an option, dropping Maddison, which is why I'm then thinking if that is what I end up doing, right? So I ditch Saka, let's say, but maybe I get in a cheaper midfielder to accommodate the price point, just in case if Saka doesn't, I can't sort of predict that, right? So at that point, I'm then thinking, who is, 5.5 and less? Because that's what I'm looking for now. And that's bearing in mind that there could be price drops and so forth. And so I guess that's what I'm thinking about now, like as a cheap enabler under 5.5. Do I still go back to a Suchek, or do I go to, like, obviously Palmer we talked about there, but do I drop down that little bit more and find a 5 point, something, or a 4.9 player?
Yeah, so I mean around there you got, so Neto, Gordon, Huang,
Neto's
Suchek.
too high. I need to find under
So
5.5.
he's 5.7, is he? Yeah, so I think
Yeah,
Gordon is
he's 5.7.
5.5.
No, it's
Um,
5.6. I think I'm just off
oh,
by
it's gone up
a.
again? Oh, God.
Yeah, Gordon. Everyone went
Um,
wild. Yeah,
yeah.
Huang. Yeah, I think the
So
the chat is saying
Huang
He Chan.
is, yeah.
Yeah, so
So
that's
Huang
that's a good option.
is,
That's a good option.
yeah, but that's the thing. Like personally, when I see the like of Huang starting every single week, I'm just not very happy.
Yeah, I
And
would
if
I would
that's the
like to
case,
stretch to Gordon. Yeah, but
but
yeah,
if that's the case, you might as well just go down to a Suchek 4.9 and
that's what I
rotate
mean,
with
and just bank.
Gay,
Yeah, yeah,
and then keep a bit of money in the bank, right? So that's like
I agree.
yeah, it's
I agree. I think that gives me a little
because
bit more flexibility to work with.
yeah, because there are players where you are happy to play every week, right? Regardless of
Yeah,
fixtures. So that the
yeah,
premium players and the talisman, but then there are players where you say, okay, I would play them in the easy games, but I don't want to play them in the harder games. So those are the
yeah,
players where you can start, okay, well, how can I rotate? So in your
Yeah.
case, due to the budget, I think a rotation between 4-4-2 and a 3-5-2 is probably the best way to going forward. And Gahey is a perfectly reasonable player to start when they have a decent fixture. Now it looks like
Yeah.
at the moment they have no attacking output because a lot of
Yeah.
injuries to the main attacking. So it looks like their setup is just to get a new draw basically.
Yeah.
And I think they've done that for 2 weeks now. So it looks like that's going to continue. So
Yeah.
he's
Oh, you got
definitely
on
a
mute
good
again.
option.
Yeah, and while you're talking about that, I've just gone on to my game week 10 just to have a look, and I obviously brought in Suchek there. But then what I've done is, gone Maddison, who has Palace as a fixture, and brought in Saka for the Sheffield fixture, for example. And I've still got, at that point, 0.5 in the bank. So that's the option. And then, I keep hold of Bowen, basically, sacrifice Maddison in that scenario, and then, feel quite content with that. So that would probably be the only transfer that I bank in for game week 10 if I, opt to sort of go down that pathway.
The good thing, such as the good thing
Yeah,
about that is you don't have to commit to Saka straight away. Like for
no,
example, if you still have that sort of niggling injury, right? Then you can say, okay, well, I'll be happy to let go of Sheffield United and
yeah,
Newcastle, and then I'll work him back for Burnley in game week 12, so that you have a bit of time to think. So you don't have to actually commit to selling Maddison straight away because like, well, can I just hold on for a bit
yeah,
and
yeah,
see what happens? So yeah, so I think there's flexibility in that setup.
yeah,
So now that you've got Bowen there, you've got Mitoma, or hopefully, obviously, we'll wait to hear if Mitoma injury
yeah.
is anything worrying.
That's
But
right.
if not, then he just can just stay there.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you think of
so yeah,
March? What do you think of March instead of Matoma?
yeah. I think March is okay, but he doesn't seem to have that security of minutes compared to Mitoma because that kid that they put in, what is it, a drinker? He's playing all
Yeah,
right.
Dringa.
He's
Yeah.
playing all right. So yeah, I'm not as confident with March in terms of minutes as I
Oh, you
would
got on
have
mute
with
again, Tien.
yeah. So Mitoma is definitely more secure in terms of
Yeah.
minutes compared to March or anyone else in the Brighton team. So once
Yeah.
again, like if you can afford Mitoma, then you don't want to sacrifice that for no good reason.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
so actually, it's probably a good time to sort of suggest if anyone has any questions. We actually had a bunch of questions already, and I'll jump to those, in a moment, just so we can, take a look at the questions that had come through already on Twitter. But also, if anyone has any questions on YouTube in the chat as well, please do sort of send them in now. We'll start sort of looking at some of those questions now. And also, it's a really good opportunity for me to just also plug in that Tien actually has teamed up with the FPL IQ guys as well. And so, Tien, tell us a little bit about FPL IQ and what you've been doing there over the past couple of months now.
Yeah, so thanks for that. No, yeah, so FPL IQ, we started this season. So there's four of us. So Rob, FPL Hall, who basically had his previous YouTube channel that he was doing on his own for a
Mm,
while. But I think he had a break last season because of a new baby. And then so basically early on this season, well, before the season start, he would just like chatting with me and say, "Hey, do you want to do something?" Because I want to get back to content, but I don't want to do it by myself because I enjoy talking
yeah,
to people. So I say,
yeah,
"Oh yeah, maybe we can do something," but I'm not sure whether I can commit like regularly because sort of
yeah,
life and work and everything get into. So we was like, well, maybe we'll find a few other to see whether we can have a team.
yeah. That's nice.
So
Yeah,
so yeah, so we've got teacher FPL teacher or teacher underscore FPL on board. He's just a great sort of eye test guide as well. And then we've
yeah.
also got Brian from the FPL chat box here in
Nice.
Australia. So basically, we've got two of us in Australia, and Rob and Lucian, FPL teacher, they are in Malaysia and Taiwan. So the time zone is kind of like close enough for us to make it work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been, what is it, 9 episode or something in, and yeah, we're basically just
Yeah.
every Thursday night here or Thursday lunchtime in the UK. We just
Yeah.
have, just have four guys chatting about FPL, and we generally
Yeah. I
don't
love it.
pay a lot of attention to our teams or things like that. We just chat about general FPL topics and a lot of sort of football side of thing as well. So yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
that's something slightly different to the sort of more popular contents out there. But
Yeah.
yeah, if
Yeah.
anyone have an opportunity to tune in, and if there's any comments or feedback, we're still trying to sort of fine tune our process as well, and yeah, any feedback would be appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. I've really enjoyed tuning into that. I love that you guys don't necessarily talk, directly about your teams. I love that you also sort of pick a player that you're looking at, in terms of their trajectory, but also outcome of picking that player over 3 to 4 game weeks as well. Really lovely to see that, because we should be thinking about our transfers from a longer period rather than just the punt picks, as you mentioned sort of earlier as well. So yeah, no, I've really enjoyed, and it's very sort of deep conversation as well, which goes on for a very long time. So I do appreciate that you guys are time stamping those as well now, because sometimes they've gone for like 2.5 hours or something like that. And this stream has also gone on for like an hour and a half, and it's probably a really good opportunity to just say thank you to everyone as well. Everyone that has joined from this part of the hemisphere, where it's going into sort of 11 p.m. over here for us in Australia, but also going into about 1 p.m. over there in the UK, and then a little bit in between, in the sort of the middle in between the UK and Australia as well. So really do appreciate you guys tuning in, and for those of you that turned up for the YouTube live stream as well. It's like I mentioned, it's the first time that I'm actually streaming live on YouTube, as well as doing it live on Spaces as well. It's a brand new sort of concept as well, doing it this way and pulling the feed from from Spaces, and having that interaction with the community, sort of from both sides as well. And I have to admit, the YouTube community has been very welcoming as well. Really nice that a bunch of people have discovered my content on there, and very sort of candid conversations and everything, and it's been really nice to get the feedback as well. And look, feedback is a gift, so if you have any feedback for me, please do post it in the chat. Drop me a message. My DMs are open as well. So yeah, feel free to drop me a message if there's any suggestions or anything like that. Really, really do appreciate, any sort of feedback or comments as well. And I think I saw earlier, I'm not sure if that's the case right now, but maybe there was like 10 also sort of people watching live on YouTube. Would really appreciate if you can, subscribe if you like this type of content as well. Hit a like as well. Really appreciate it. It's just another way of sort of providing feedback if you don't have any sort of other sort of feedback to provide me. So yeah, thank you so much for that. But we'll sort of take a bunch of questions now. So on the screen I've got a couple of questions that came in earlier when I posted earlier around doing these streams. So we've got one from Peter here. I hope I'm saying your name right. I'm sure maybe it's Peter and you spell it with an A. So I apologise if I've absolutely butchered your name there. But you've mentioned that you're thinking about you will be doing a Stupinianta Gehi, which will give me some more funds, and I'm undecided who to bring in for Eze. So Tien, any thoughts about who to bring in for Eze? I think I think Peter also tweeted his team, so we might be able to find that in the chat as well.
No, I
He
think
did.
I think if you just open the actual comment on that,
Oh, is it under there? Ah,
yeah, so
okay. Let's
under
have a
that, I
look.
think.
Oh, brilliant. Okay,
Yep,
there you
there
go.
we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
So let's
let's have
just
a
have a
look.
look.
So money in the
So got
bank.
point four in the bank. Yep.
Yep. And then we can look at his team. So 0.4 in the bank, and he's got Eze potentially to take out. I don't know what Eze's price is. I think Eze's price is maybe 6 point something.
Yeah. So Estupinian down to Gay. That's about points. So that'll be about 1 million altogether to spend.
6.1. Thanks, Fran. Really appreciate that. Yeah, so Eze is 6.1 at the moment.
So about 7.1 or around 7, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's already got DRB there.
So you got
And
Salah, Diaz, Diaby.
yeah, and his Stupinian will become
I think
Gehi.
it just gotta
So there'll be
be
more money.
Mitoma. I think it's gonna be Mitoma, right?
Yeah.
If he's not injured.
Well, if he doesn't, may not, Peter, he may not need to make another transfer. If he's doing one transfer, maybe roll the
True.
second one. If that's 2 free transfers that,
That is true.
Peter,
That
you've
is true.
got,
Just play Gehi.
might be
Or
worthwhile
Gehi is
rolling the second
playing,
one.
but
You're on
Gehi is
mute,
playing
Tien.
Newcastle. So
All
annoying.
good.
But yeah, I mean, as I said, he could play Gehi, but then Gehi is playing Newcastle, right? So it's not
Yeah.
ideal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And playing Archer is definitely not ideal. Yeah. So I can see why he's tempted to take that -4.
Yeah. But is it sort of worth? Yeah, I get the
Yeah.
Archer move. Yeah. And Gehi, yeah, a bit tricky there. In fact, you could probably not bother playing Gehi because, well, bring in Gehi later maybe, but bring in someone else for Eze, because I do think Mitoma could get some returns against,
He
against
can't
City,
afford
but
that. He
also,
can't. I don't think he
yeah.
can. He afford Mitoma straight from Eze? Because if he can do that, I'll just do that. Yeah.
No, he's only got 0.4 in the bank. So yeah, you're right. Like he's only got, that takes him up to,
Yeah.
and
Not
that's
enough.
presuming that you can sell Eze for 6.1 as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Not enough.
So Shamil in the chat has also said Saliba out. Yeah, so that's an option as well. Take Saliba out, but Saliba might be okay as well. So I don't know what his injury is looking like at the moment.
Yeah, but in any case, I think if Mitoma is fit, he's gonna
Yeah,
be #1 transfer target for that kind
yeah,
of price range.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
Estupinian
obviously,
down and Eze up to Matoma is probably a good shout.
yeah, or Ward-Prowse. Eze to Ward-Prowse could be another option
Yeah, or Eze to Neto as well. Yeah,
for Neto.
yeah. Like Neto,
So,
like
so
Wolves do have some good fixtures. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'll
Okay.
probably just keep Estupinian in that case, really. Yeah, just do
Yeah,
Eze out to one of those midfielders. Yeah.
yeah. I agree. I agree. So the second question that we had earlier as well was from FPL Aldrin. So FPL Aldrin says, if I transfer Salah using my wildcard, I plan to switch to 4-4-2 formation. I believe that Dallo, Gehi, and Gabriel earn more points than Neto and Gordon. 4.5 to 5 mil defender is better than 5.5 midfielders. Opinion of that?
In the right game week, with the right fixture, yes. But week in, week out, probably not. So this is where I think we go back to your conversation about your team, right? I think this
Yeah,
is where you start to think about that rotation pair. I
yeah,
think it's totally valid to do that due to budget. So you pair up a 4.5 million defender with, let's say, a 5 million, sort of around that 5 million
yeah,
midfielder, like a Suchek, for example, in your case, right? Where you could rotate them. So play the better one, the one with the better fixture.
yeah,
So if you do it right, then potentially you maximize the points rather than just have playing 4-4-2 all the time and have like a 4.4 million midfielder that you never play. Or if you play like you never really get more than 2 points, then it's like a very inflexible team where
yeah,
you have to play your 4.5 defenders in all games, and in the tougher fixtures, well, you would expect 1 or 2 points. So
yeah,
whereas if you can rotate with like a Suchek, for example, in a more favourable fixture, he could potentially get a return. So that's probably the best way forward for someone with like limited budget.
Yeah.
to be able to fit in like the Salah and Haaland and all that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, look, I think, like you say, I'm in a similar sort of predicament there. And my gut says to hold on to Saka. And so, I'm definitely I feel like I've already kind of roughly, especially through this conversation as well, and looking at a couple of those options as well. I don't like the idea of banking in too many transfers looking ahead as well. And the idea of sort of losing Trippier, look, I'm not wedded to holding on to Trippier entirely, for the duration of, how many other game weeks we've got until the next wild card, right? And that will probably see us through to sort of January onwards, that kind of time frame. So, yeah, look, I'm open to the idea of, being flexible with that, definitely. And I think I'm going to have to be because, the options will change along the way as well. But like you say, I think dropping down Watkins eventually to Alvarez does sort of open up some funds there. And I'm definitely sort of open to, that possibility as well. I'm just looking through the chat on Spaces now, just to see if there's any questions that sort of, have come up there. There's a couple of like posts on Teams, which we can probably go through sort of afterwards as well. I think there's no real question. That's someone's just posted their team, and yeah. So Epachin has said if no Salah and no Trippier, who all you can own as a best lineup? Yeah. Yeah, with a wink, yeah, like it's pretty tough. Wasteman did post his team as well, but there's no question in there around how many transfers you have, Wasteman, and how much money you have in the bank as well. So I know that you are in the YouTube chat there, so maybe you can tell us, like, we can see your team on Spaces, but maybe you can tell us in the chat like how much money you have, and yeah, what are you trying to do with your, like, what are you trying to work with, basically? But yeah, otherwise we're kind of like, yeah, hitting that 1 hour 44 minutes, which is less than what you normally do, Tien. So I really do appreciate your time, especially on a Friday
I
night.
do talk a lot, so yes.
Yeah, no, you don't. You really don't. Everything that we've talked about, I feel anyway, has been incredibly valuable for me, especially on my wild card. And as I sort of, go through the highs and lows and the predicaments that I've been sort of, trying to work through as well. And yeah, look, I really do appreciate it. So Wasteman has just said that he's got one free transfer and zero point 0.1 mil in the bank. And it looks like you've got your captaincy on Salah there as well. And so just so for everyone else's sake, Wasteman's got Turner, Udogie, Cash, Trippier, Maddison, Son, Salah, Neto, Ward-Prowse, Watkins, and Haaland. I don't know, actually. I probably wouldn't bother making a transfer. Like,
Yeah, I would just roll. I would just roll that,
yeah.
and then decide whether who we can sell for Saka in game week 10.
Yeah.
Potentially, if you want a Bowen or a Mitoma as well, so you got so you got two free transfers to think about who you would prioritize out of those
Yeah.
in game week 10. But yeah, that team looks good to roll, man.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Wasteman, you've got a really good team there. I wouldn't touch it.
Yep.
Love. Okay, so captaincy. Actually, let's chat captaincy really quickly before we sort of call it a day for us anyway. But captaincy, what are
It's
your
not midnight
thoughts,
yet.
Tien? Yeah.
So currently my captain is bust on Haaland
Mm,
because Brighton. So and Haaland playing at home with Rodri back as well. So
yeah.
obviously in the last three domestic games they've lost all three without Rodri. So you can see that how important he is to the way they play.
Yeah.
So now he's back. Haaland has been obviously very hungry because
Yes.
he hasn't had a lot of opportunity. I think he scored in his national duty just earlier today as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah, that's right.
so yeah. So I think I'm on Haaland. Now Salah is obviously a great shout as well, and so is Son, to be honest, because Everton at home and Fulham at home. Both very good fixture. But Salah playing Everton is generally never an easy fixture.
Yeah.
It's a derby,
Oh, you've
right?
gone on mute again, mate.
Hang on. There we go. And the fact that they're playing the early kickoff, where potentially there may be players from
Yeah.
far away, South America or wherever,
I know. That's the other thing,
coming
right?
back late
Liverpool's
and
got like
not
4 players
100
or something coming from there.
100%. And so yeah, so it's not too much about the early kickoff like Candy and stuff, but
Nah.
it's just the fact that there'll be players coming straight back from playing like 4 or 5 a.m. on a Thursday morning or something, coming back and one day of training and then straight into a lunchtime game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could impact their performance. Who knows? But I mean, Salah has been on great form, and
Yeah.
so for me, the one thing that I don't rely on in making my decision is what they did last week.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
So a lot of people will say, "Oh, Son just blank and Salah just hold, right? Therefore, I'm going to captain Salah." Was
Yeah.
like, well, I don't think that matters. Obviously, when someone is on form, they are more confident. Yeah, of course, that's a factor, but I don't think that's the key factor.
No,
So
I
the
yeah, I
fact that
agree.
Haaland hasn't scored in the last 2 games make me want to captain him more
Yes.
because he's so
Yes.
hungry, and
Yes.
Brighton have been leaky as well.
Oh, they've been so leaky.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's that's why I'm on Haaland at the moment.
Yeah, me too. I think I knew, like, I was ever so slightly tempted by Salah captaincy, a little bit of Liverpool bias, but also, it's a good fixture. It's the derby, the Merseyside derby, which I've been fortunate enough, to go and see in my 20s, very long time ago. But I had such a great time going up there, to Anfield and being on the Cop side as well, watching that match. And Merseyside is just absolutely mental, during that time as well. And so, yeah, look, it's a really good fixture, and it's one that Salah loves playing as well. So yeah, it's hard not to lean towards a Salah captaincy just because of everything, like form. And I think in the chat as well, we've got sort of, he's on great form, absolutely. But I think it's not that he's not on good form. It's about that, Haaland is super hungry. It's a really good fixture. Rodri's back as well. There's a lot of potential, for a massive rank drop as well. But of course, the upside is very high there as well. So yeah, completely agree with those points as well. But no, I'm definitely sort of on Haaland captaincy this time round. I think I'm gonna give up on the Spurs captaincies because they've both not worked out for me. So I captained Maddison a couple of game weeks ago. I think it was game week 5 or something. And then I captained Son, the previous game week as well. And in hindsight, I probably would have gone Maddison captain. Probably would have been the better shout because I didn't have Salah in the team either. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. And yeah, and I'm a firm believer of looking forward rather than sort of looking back too much, but learning from the previous experiences at the very least. So I think that's pretty much it. I think we're going to wrap up there. It looks like we've caught most of the questions. I think there might be a few in the chat that maybe we can get to, sort of post stream as well. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that have turned up for YouTube, especially because it was the first time I was doing a YouTube live stream as well. And I was like working things out as I was going. And I think Tien, when you joined, and I was like, yeah, I think it's just a couple of buttons here. Maybe it'll work. Maybe not, but yeah, we'll work it out from there. But it's been a really good learning experience. This was actually my 10th video, so I'm only 10 videos in and 10 spaces in as well. So I really do appreciate everyone turning up, and yeah, it's been fantastic sort of chatting to you all. And Tien, it's been absolutely wonderful to have you as a guest. And, as you all know, I've mentioned Tien quite a few times, FPL Planner, not just because he is great at planning. So Tien used to, and still does, I believe, you still got your sort of spreadsheet planner, which was very, very useful for me when I was traveling around Peru last year, because I was pretty offline majority of that time. But I was able to open that up and kind of, do a bit of tinkering and planning as well. So I do appreciate, your planner as well, which is where you get your name, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. But no, thanks for having me. I think it's been a great chat. And yeah, so it's very enjoyable, and hopefully, your wildcard will work out. And yeah, I hope you all the best with the wildcard, because wildcard is always the most exciting time. Like you got
Yeah.
it.
And I've got another
Two,
week.
two wildcards. Yeah, two wildcards a season, and for me, like the wildcard week is always the best time
Yeah.
of the season. So especially
Yeah.
when it works out. So just finger crossed that it will work out for you, and
Yeah.
for everyone else who is wildcarding this game week as well.
Yeah, definitely, and that's a really good shout, and a great place to sort of end on as well. So please go and drop Tien a follow on Twitter as well, and check out FPL IQ as well. They stream on a Thursday evening over here, but it's a Thursday afternoon over in the UK, and sort of in between those times if you're anywhere in between as well. The other thing, Tien, I just wanted to kind of shout out as well, that has been very valuable for me, something that you do, which is the never buy list. The never buy again list that you have.
Yeah,
And I absolutely do love that list that you've got, because it's so handy, to kind of. So actually, what I did, and I won't bother sort of bringing it up on the screen, at the moment, but I actually searched through your tweets and searched for never buy again. So I highly recommend, if anyone is curious, go and search under Tien's account and search for never buy again. You will see all of the players that Tien has vowed to never buy again. But it's such a great list, and it's such a great idea to have, and really, really good to do as well. In fact, if you want me to do it, maybe I will do it. Let's see if I can
yeah.
get.
Well, I just have to have a bit of a caveat as well. Like it wasn't meant to be super serious.
Yeah.
It obviously, there are players who so search for hashtag, so hashtag never buy,
I think you only had
never
one on
buy,
there. I think you only had one on
ne,
there.
ne, yeah, never buy again
A list on the end.
list. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that what you've been? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so Jackson has made the list, the latest member of the list.
Oh,
Now,
too
obviously,
funny.
the caveat for some of these as well. Like I think I had Maddison on the list, but that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Maddison again.
Jordan
In
Pickford.
Leicester, like Leicester Maddison, because I never had
Bloody
any luck
hell.
with him.
Yeah, yeah,
Never
yeah.
had any luck with him. But obviously Maddison with Spurs is a different Maddison, so that
Yeah.
doesn't count. Now I also have
Were
like
there any others? Yeah, you got Riyadh.
Darwin Nunes as well. But obviously I knew that I was getting him just for 1 or 2 week punt,
Yeah.
mainly due to budget. So I was like, okay, well
Yeah. That's so
that
good.
kind of an exception as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't meant to be super serious, but it's funny. Like sometimes I look back and say, yeah, I remember why I why those players
Why you did
made it
that.
to the
Yeah.
because it's not just one time thing, right? Like for a lot of them, it was a multiple
Oh,
times. Like Mahrez, for example,
Mahrez.
I
I saw
never had
Mahrez
any
down
luck with
there.
Mahrez. I
Yeah.
never had any luck with Mahrez at all.
We
Like
don't have to worry
no,
about Mahrez anymore, thankfully.
yeah. So I'm so happy he was like finally gone.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so handy, and I started forming my own list on just my app, and yeah, it's notes app, and I sort of try and go back to that and have a look as well. So really, really useful to have a never buy again list. But I took the liberty of sort of going through your tweets to find all your never buy. As I just searched for it, and there was quite a few that sort of turned up from like 2022 as well. So I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
wow, this is something that you've been doing for a very long time, and yeah, very useful to do. And you also do a bunch of threads as well, which maybe you can link into the spaces and afterwards, but that you've got a lot of threads around what to do before you're wildcarding, what to do sort of when you're considering a bunch of things. And yeah, so I love those as well. I think as a new FPL manager, I found those very, very valuable. Whenever you've very quickly, when I've asked you a question, you've gone, here's one I prepared earlier, and here's a thread that I put together 2 years ago. And it's so valid. There's so many good threads there that you've put out there as well and shared. So yeah, thank you so much for putting out the content that you do, either on Twitter or on YouTube as well. So very much appreciated. Anyway, I think that is all for now. We've had a bunch of people drop off from Spaces, but look, if anyone's still listening, please please subscribe, and yeah, really, really appreciate it. First time sort of doing it on YouTube, as I mentioned, but yeah, very much appreciated, and great to have Tien again. Thank you so much, and yeah, hopefully catch you in the next one. Yeah, good luck with your wildcards if you're on wildcards. Good luck with your transfers as well. Enjoy what's left of the international break as well. So thank you.
Worries. Thank you. Thanks. And green arrows to everyone next week.
Green arrows to everyone. Fantastic. Thanks again, everyone. Take it easy.
Take it easy. Bye.